Money doesn't grow on trees. Well, we're here to tell you that it does and show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Money Grows on Trees. I am your host, Damian and Eshar, the Melbourne broker. Have with me the lovely co-host, Eshar. Welcome back, Eshar.
Thanks for having me again, Damian, and welcome, everyone. Thanks for listening.
So today's topic we are going to talk about, I'll let you introduce the amazing topic that we're going to talk about today.
The amazing topic today is all around equity. So what is equity? How do we use equity? And everything else about equity, really. So the first question is, what is equity?
So equity is simply put, and I'll try, because let's face it, banks and everyone just confuse stuff all the time with all these words and equity and how you use it. So equity, really put simply, is the difference between what your home is worth and what your mortgage is. That's it. So if your home's worth $1 million and you owe $700,000, you've got $300,000 in equity, right? But that's only the case if you sell the property. So lending against it is different. But that's an example of what equity is. There's obviously, and we'll uncover today, the differences in how to use equity and how the banks look at it. But yeah, it's basically the difference between what you owe and what your asset is worth. Because equity can be in a number of different things. It could actually be in your car. If you've got a car that's paid off and it's worth $30,000, well, there's $30,000 in equity, but you need to sell that to get the money. Okay. So that's what it is.
So in that example, if I have $1 million home and my loan's $700,000, how much of that $300,000 equity can I use if I was to buy a home or an investment property?
That's a great question. This is where I feel like a lot of people get caught out because they assume that they can use a full 300. And we'll roll on with that example of the $1 million home and a $700,000 mortgage. So what the banks like to do is they like to hold on to a little bit of the equity for risk profile. Now, generally, it's 10% or 20%. If I was to go with the example of 20% to be more conservative, that would mean the banks would take your loan up to $800,000. So now if you owe $700,000, you've actually got $100,000 in equity that you can then use as a deposit to then put towards your new property, whether it be another property you want to buy for an investment. There's a number of different ways you could want to utilize that equity, but yeah, it's generally 80%, so but 80%. You can go a bit more. Okay. You can go a bit more. There's definitely lenders who will go a bit more, and nearly all of them do, but as a rule, without paying mortgage insurance, 80% is where it kicks in.
Okay. So say I did want to use that 80% towards buying my next home or investment. Is it a sure thing? So is using my equity a sure thing, or will the bank still take into account my situation and other questions and whatever
So
else?
you mean like, is it a sure thing in getting a loan for that amount? Yeah. No. So you've got the banks need to consider you as an applicant and your overall situation, like they do anytime they're lending money, because it falls under the responsible lending guide. So they need to not just look at your equity, they need to make sure, why are you working? Because I've had clients that have had their houses paid off, but they're not working. And they come to me like, but Damien, my house is paid off. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah.
But you need to tick all the other boxes. If there's 5 boxes that need to be ticked and 2 aren't, or one's not, you won't get a loan. So there are a number of other criteria that need to be met, like any normal application that you go for. So no, it's not a sure thing.
It's a good thing, not a sure thing.
It's a good one. That's a good quote. We'll get Cara to write that up and quote it, and maybe we can put you on that as your quote.
Flattered.
So yeah, it is. That's exactly right. It is a good thing, and it does help you, but it's not a sure thing because there are other attributes of your application that need to stack up for the bank to say, yes, here you go. Now, you may think your home's worth $1 million. So we don't go to the bank and write, home's worth $1 million. Thank you. The bank will need to do a valuation. So they will send out a registered valuer, which they have a panel of registered valuers on their list, out to your home, and they'll give you what's called a sworn valuation as such. So then the bank can use that to lend on.
What about if it's a massive difference? Like, what if I thought my home was worth $1 million and it's really worth 650? Okay, let's say 800 because that's a bit steep.
Yeah, look, it does happen, but not a lot. I mean, generally a $200,000 gap is not something we would see often.
Mm-hmm.
The gap can, on something like that, you may see it around between $50,000 or a little bit less. Because it's okay to get that amount wrong. Like you might think your home's worth $1 million, but the bank might say, well, it's worth 950.
Yeah. I
But that
might have
could,
dropped in value.
but that could be that it's. But then an agent might come in and say, well, it's worth $1,050,000. So there's that difference, but the bank won't rely on the agent's valuation. That's just what they think you would get if you were selling it. And there's reasons why I think they do that, because they need, again, risk. They need to make sure, well, if they need to sell these in a heartbeat, that's what they would get. So we don't just work with one bank, right? So we can order multiple valuations, and they do vary. We might get one valuation that says 950, another one might say $1,010,000.
And then what happened? Do you use the bigger one?
Well, no. So what we do is, as a recommendation piece, we go to the clients and recommend all the things. So it's not just the equity. It is, well, how much equity do you need? Can you rely? Is the 950 valuation enough for you to rely on, because you only may want to get $50,000? So let's say lender A, which has given you $1,010,000, their rate is 3%, but lender B has given you 950, and their rate is 2.5%.
And you a fine print.
And you only need the 950. You don't need the $1,010,000.
Yeah,
because you only want to get 50 grand out to build a pool or to upgrade and do some minor improvements to your home. So it goes on the overall profile and what the client's goal is in order to achieve that.
Which is probably why you would need a broker.
100%. All about the brokers.
Shameless plug. But it would help in that situation.
It is, because if you go directly to your bank, they're going to just give you the one valuation. Whereas we will order the valuation upfront first. So I would one of the first things I do is, okay, well, let's choose 3 banks that are giving some really good rates, and let's see what the valuation comes back at, and then we order that first.
Makes sense. And does it make a difference if you're buying an investment property or a home that you want to move into when you're using your equity?
So when you're using equity, yeah. So it does. It depends. No. So it doesn't matter on what you're buying. It's what your current asset is that you're using the equity out of.
Okay.
So we've used the example of 80%. All banks will do that. Some banks will go to 90%. All right. But that's only for if it's your principal place of residence that you live in. And then some banks will go to 90%, including lender's mortgage insurance, which is around about, not to get too confusing, but it's about 88%.
Okay. So you might get a little bit more equity if it's out of your home that you're living in.
There are opportunities for you to gain a bit more equity if it's your principal place of residence where you live, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But it's in terms of what you're using it for, that's a whole different conversation, because banks look at things as to why you're getting the money out, which I think might be a good segue into.
If you think about it from that point of view, we're not talking about homes, can you use the equity from your home in that 80% to buy a car, to go on a holiday, or even to renovate your house or something?
You definitely can. So it's all about purpose and what the purpose of the lending is for. If you said to the bank, I want to take out $50,000 to start a new business, then that's deemed as business use, and they don't really like that. There are some that are okay with it, but to them, if you're working for someone and you say to them, well, I want $50,000 to start my own business, how do they know you're going to be able to continue to pay that debt? So they're not really keen on that. Again, there are some lenders that will allow it. It's individualized depending on the lender and their policy. You can use it for renovations. You could use it for improvements. There are a number of reasons you can use it, but there's also things you can't use it for. Like if you wanted to, again, start a business, or if you told the bank, I want to invest in cryptocurrency, well, they don't like that.
Well, what if you asked for $60,000 for renovations and then just wanted to invest in crypto? And you just did that. Is there a way that they check?
Look, I believe it happens, but no, they won't check. It comes down to, well, you're essentially lying, so you're committing
You're
fraud.
just doing the wrong thing.
You're fraudulently lying about what your money's for.
Yeah.
So it's kind of doesn't look good if something ends up happening in the future where they need to, redeem your property or take that money back, and they see you haven't actually renovated the property. You've got half a Bitcoin, so we'll take the Bitcoin, which I don't think they can do. But yeah, no, you need to declare exactly what it's for, because it's a declaration, much like anything else.
Yeah. And don't commit fraud.
You need to be responsible.
Yep. Do the right thing.
And don't be afraid to tell your broker what you're using the money for, unless it's something really silly. But then still, you need to tell them.
Then maybe reconsider.
Like if you wanted to go to the casino, or if you wanted to gamble, and literally if you wanted to buy cryptocurrency, but if you wanted to buy shares, that's okay, because you would get a letter from a financial planner saying, I'd like to take out $100,000 to invest in shares, and they would back that up because it's responsible lending. You've got a financial planner, they're certified, so they can give you advice on that money.
Okay, so you can use your equity for other things, basically. Yes. Just use them for the right things.
Card, travel, that's okay. Yeah.
Cool.
There's obviously caps. So but some banks will say, well, we're not going to give you, anything more than $50,000. We need evidence of what that money's for.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to do a renovation, this is where people get confused. You want to do a renovation on your property, right? Mm-hmm. And you say, well, I want to do a renovation, spend $100,000. A lot of the time the bank want to see a building contract, or they'll want detailed notes of what that money's for.
Yeah, like a quote.
If you said, well, I'm going to rip out walls and knock that, the bank owns a property as much as you do, because they've lent you money against it. They need to know what you're doing to this place.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. And if you are borrowing that additional money, that's obviously going to affect your loan, isn't it? If you're adding on $100,000 to your home loan, I'm assuming you'd need to reconsider the repayments and your budget and do all that.
So your repayments will obviously go up, and that's normal because you're borrowing more money. So you need to, and again, the bank will lend you that money based on your application fitting their criteria. So you need to make sure you fit that criteria. Then you'd also need to make sure, which I'm really big on, and I have this conversation with every single client, and I'm like, just because the bank says they can lend you $1 million, are you really comfortable repaying, $1 million?
Yeah.
Like, does that sit well with you? Do you know that if one income drops, or if one of the parents need to take a couple of weeks off, or something unforeseen happens, are you okay with that repayment? And a lot of the time they're like, yes, we are, but we're capped out at here.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that too. And the same thing applies with when you're using your equity to borrow more.
Yeah.
I would apply the same principles.
Yeah. So I guess whenever there's a change in your situation or what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. How can someone increase the equity in their home?
This is a good one. You're finding the good questions today, Ish. Like it.
Thanks.
Well, we've spoken about renovations. Mm-hmm. So there are things you can do to increase the value of your property. It could be, inside the home, there's things you could do without needing to knock down walls and change the entire way the property looks. But what I mean by that is you could do paint. You could change from normal cupboards. You could put mirrored cupboards. You could add value by adding things to the home, which you can obviously get ideas from other homes. Maybe go to some display homes, see what other properties have been looked at. If you want ideas, what I always think is a good idea is to go look in the market. What's for sale?
Yeah.
And look at any renovated homes and see. Well, you can see a lot of old homes that have been renovated and see ideas from that. Seek a bit of inspiration.
Yeah, like a nicer bathroom or maybe an additional bedroom.
Yeah.
Or an office or something. So renovate.
Yeah.
How else?
Well, and I'm going to put this really bluntly, but let's say where your parents live, right? Mm-hmm. If you were to go into that home and you wanted to add value to it, what would you do?
Knock it down.
It's a mansion. You can't knock it down.
Just renovate it.
Yeah, you would probably change the tiles.
Yeah.
Maybe give it some fresh paint.
Just aesthetic.
Yeah.
Things,
maybe change it. You could change the benches. You could change the cupboards.
Things that I would focus on, the things that add value.
Correct. So there are a number
bathrooms,
of things.
kitchen.
Things like adding a pool, you could add value. Adding a fence, adding a secure fence. Gardening, landscaping. There's a number of things that if are not done in the home, it's really hard to do when you've bought a brand new property, like the one we live in, right? We can't really add much value.
Yeah.
We can make it look really nice and present it well if it was to sell. But in terms of adding value, there's probably not a lot we could do.
Yeah.
We rent this house anyway, so I don't think we'd be painting it or doing things like that.
We wouldn't be paying for
But
it.
this is just an example there.
And what about holding on to your property to build equity? So appreciation and things like that.
Yeah. Look, I mean, stats show the property goes up in value.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's got to be in line with your goals. So what are your goals? Are you trying to have 3 or 4 properties that all go up in value and then retire one day and sell them all and offload that and then cash in? So I think you need to really look at what your goals are in terms of, why you're holding that property. Property is a really interesting topic. You've got to, you need to buy a property to know why you're buying it. For example, it's like when you buy a home to live in, why do you like it? Why do you want to buy that? And the same applies when you're buying an investment property. It's really important to map out your goals.
Yeah. Cool. And I answered this question myself in my head. And one way you could, I guess, gain more equity in your home is if you pay down your loan.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Well, that's exactly right. Look how happy you are that you've come up with that.
So I'm like, yes, I got an answer that you didn't say.
That's right. There are things that I miss sometimes, I guess.
Sometimes.
So, yeah, obviously if you reduce your loan, then that's going to increase the equity in the property itself. So definitely.
Cool. Hopefully that answered some questions about equity, what it is and how you can use it in different ways and how it can benefit you and also buy you a car, which is great.
You can buy you a car.
Or maybe crypto.
Or crypto.
No,
please don't buy crypto.
No crypto.
On that note, guys, I will add in here now more than ever. I need to add this. That the advice given today is for education purposes only. It is not directed to you individually. Please seek independent financial advice that is tailored to you and your specific scenario. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining Ish again. Until next week, we will see you again.
See you later.